Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today, we're really diving into a fascinating story, the world of Ziad Mekdachi, champion bodybuilder.
Yeah, this guy's life story is something else.
Seriously, we're exploring his autobiography, Beyond the Facts. And let me tell you, this is not your average, muscle-bound memoir.
Absolutely not. I mean, the guy's life reads like an action movie.
I know. Escaping civil war, facing betrayal, becoming a champion. Talk about resilience.
Yeah, his resilience is just off the charts. It's incredible.
All right, so let's rewind to the beginning. Ziad was born in Beirut in 1979, right in the middle of a brutal civil war.
Wow. Can you imagine growing up like that?
It's hard to even fathom. It makes you wonder how these early experiences shaped his whole worldview, especially with, his family's mix of Lebanese and Seychelles heritage.
That's got to influence your sense of identity, for sure.
For sure. Then, fast forward to 2006, the July War breaks out, and he decides to move to Seychelles, his mother's home country.
Huge change. I mean, talk about a 180 from a war zone to, like, a tropical paradise.
It's like something out of a movie. It makes you think about how that kind of drastic shift in environment must have impacted him.
You'd have to adapt, wouldn't you? And on that note, remember, this is a guy who was already a kickboxing champion.
Oh, right. And a professional lifeguard. I mean, talk about being in shape.
Right. We're not talking about someone who just stumbled into fitness. Athleticism is in his blood.
It really seems like it. But then things get interesting. His brother introduces him to bodybuilding, and boom, that's when things really take off.
Well, at first it was all about aesthetics. He was drawn to the sculpted physiques of those champions.
He saw those guys and just thought, I want to look like that.
Basically, yeah. You can almost picture him studying their form, meticulously learning the ropes. But then something clicked. That spark ignited.
And he's hooked.
Completely. Ziad starts training rigorously. And remember, this is all while holding down a full-time job.
Talk about dedication.
The guy's got drive, strict diet, regimented sleep, workouts that push him to the absolute limit. It becomes his life.
So it's 2009. He enters his first competition, the SAB Open.
And wins.
Of course, it's like the beginning of this incredible winning streak, culminating with his first Mr. Seychelles title.
Oh, and don't forget, he dethroned 2 established champions to get that title. This was a statement.
Wow, he went from zero to hero pretty quickly.
Yeah, he did. And he just kept going, constantly pushing himself, always trying to be better.
Which clearly works because he went on to win a record-breaking 6 Mr. Seychelles titles, staying undefeated in all the local competitions.
The guy was unstoppable. But then he decides to step onto the bigger stage, international competition.
That's interesting. I wonder what sparked that decision. Was it like a thirst for a new challenge? I need to prove himself on a larger scale?
Who knows? But you got to admire the ambition, right?
Absolutely. So in 2009, he makes his international debut at the World Championship in Dubai.
And lands in the top 5.
Not bad at all for a first-timer.
Not bad at all. It showed he could compete with the best. And it didn't stop there. 4th place at the 2013 Amateur Olympia in Bahrain.
Then gold at the 2014 Amateur Olympia in Johannesburg.
And another gold at the Indian Ocean Mauritius Eric Favre Classic. This guy was consistently at the top of his game.
It's really impressive, never finishing below the top 10 or even the top 5 in any international competition.
Yeah, you don't get those kinds of results without serious dedication. But then things get a little more complicated.
Oh, what happened?
He meets this mentor, just referred to as R.
Mysterious.
Very. But this mentor helps Ziad refine his physique and his training, pushing him to a whole new level.
So we're not just talking about a physical transformation.
No, it's deeper than that. It's like Ziad unlocked a new level of understanding about bodybuilding.
Like finding a hidden gear, tapping into some hidden potential.
Exactly. He describes it as a complete transformation, and with that, he completely dominates the 2018 Gentle Giant Classic, an African championship.
Wins his category and takes home the overall title. It seems like nothing could stop him.
Wow. About that.
Oh no, what happened?
He faces this resistance from the local federations. It seems they're determined to hold him back.
What? Why?
The book doesn't really go into the details. It's not totally clear what their motivations are.
That's so frustrating. Imagine putting your heart and soul into representing your country, only to be met with this opposition.
It's heartbreaking. And, it gets even worse. They refuse to renew their IFBB affiliation, which means...
he can't officially represent Seychelles at the Arnold Classic Sports Festival.
Exactly. What a blow. You'd think that an athlete of Ziad's caliber would have the full support of his home country, wouldn't you?
You'd think so. But this is where his resilience really shines through. He uses this betrayal as fuel.
It's like a classic underdog story. He's more determined than ever to prove them wrong.
And that brings us to the 2019 Arnold Classic, one of the most prestigious bodybuilding competitions in the world.
His chance to silence all the doubters, and maybe even make history.
Exactly. So what happens? Does he pull it off?
Oh, he does. He wins the heavyweight category.
Amazing. But wait, there's more, right?
Always. He goes on to win the overall title, becoming the first IFBB pro bodybuilder from the entire Indian Ocean.
Incredible.
It's a moment of pure triumph. The book describes him dropping to his knees, overwhelmed with emotion, and the crowd is chanting, "Seychelles beast."
Chills. It's such a powerful image. But it also raises some questions.
Like what?
Like, how did he manage to stay so focused and driven? I mean, he's training like a machine, dealing with all this drama, fighting for his right to compete. It's a lot.
It is. And that's actually where we get into his unique approach to training, his philosophy, really.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What's his secret? What sets him apart?
Well, he calls it his two-phased approach, building the monster and sculpting the masterpiece.
Okay, hold on. We're going to need to unpack that.
We definitely will.
Let's take a quick break, and then we'll dive into those training phases when we come back.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so we left off at those two phases of training, building the monster and sculpting the masterpiece. I gotta say, those names are pretty awesome.
They are, aren't they? Very evocative.
So let's start with building the monster. What exactly does that entail?
Well, picture this. Ziad's in the gym. He's lifting heavy, pushing maximum weight, and focusing on fewer reps.
But we're talking like 3 to 5 reps?
Yeah, somewhere in that range. It's all about raw power and building mass in this phase.
It's giving me like those old school strongman vibes, just pure strength.
Exactly. And to make sure he's pushing those muscles to their absolute limit, he takes these long rest periods between sets.
How long are we talking?
Sometimes up to like 3 minutes. It allows for full recovery so he can hit each set with maximum intensity.
I'm starting to see where that Seychelles Beast nickname comes from. It sounds intense.
Oh, it is. He really pushes himself. But there's a strategy to it, too.
Oh, I bet. So what about those compound movements you mentioned earlier?
Ah, yes. Compound movements like squats, deadlifts, bench presses, these are key.
Because they work multiple muscle groups at the same time?
Exactly. They're essential for building a solid foundation. It's like, building a skyscraper. You need a strong base.
Makes sense. So it's not just about isolating individual muscles. It's about engaging multiple muscle groups to really stimulate that growth.
You got it. But building the monster is just one half of the equation.
Right, because then we have sculpting the masterpiece, which to me is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, this phase is all about refining, about achieving that stage-ready physique.
So how do you make that shift? How do you go from building raw strength to creating like a work of art?
Well, he increases the volume of training, so more sets, more reps, and with lighter weights, focusing on precision and definition.
It's like he's trading in a sledgehammer for a chisel.
Exactly. But it's still intense. The intensity is channeled differently.
How so?
Shorter rest periods, sometimes as little as 60 seconds, to maintain a high heart rate and push his cardiovascular conditioning.
So it's a different kind of challenge. It's not just about lifting heavy anymore. It's about pushing his body in new ways.
Exactly. Now, he doesn't go into specific routines or anything like that in the book.
Okay.
But he does emphasize perfect form throughout each rep, especially when working with lighter weights.
I can see why that would be important.
You really want to squeeze and contract the muscles, bring out that definition.
It's fascinating how he applies that same level of intensity and focus to both phases,
He's not afraid to push himself, that's for sure. But he does it strategically. There's a purpose behind everything. And he doesn't do it alone either.
Oh, right. He mentions those mentors, his coach RD and his mentor RA.
They played a big role in his development.
So even a champion like Ziad recognizes the value of guidance and expertise.
Absolutely. They helped him refine his technique, his posing, his diet. They even did these muscle symmetry checks to make sure everything was balanced.
It's like having a second set of eyes, someone to spot areas for improvement that you might miss on your own.
Exactly. It makes a big difference.
It makes sense. But I think it's time to move on to another crucial element here. Nutrition?
Ah, yes. The fuel that drives the machine.
Exactly. And Ziad is clearly passionate about this.
Oh, he is. He says it's even more important than training. You can train as hard as you want.
But if you're not fueling your body right,
you won't reach your full potential.
it's like trying to build a house without, bricks or something.
Perfect analogy. So let's break down his approach. He emphasizes balance.
Okay.
The 3 macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fats.
Makes sense. I'm sure protein is pretty high on the list.
Oh, for sure. Lean meats, fish, eggs, dairy, all the good stuff.
Protein is like the building block of muscle, right?
Exactly. So naturally, it's crucial for someone like Ziad, who's pushing his body to the limits.
But what about carbs? Especially with all that emphasis on muscle definition.
Well, that's where things get interesting. Ziad adjusts his carb intake based on his training phase.
Okay, so it's strategic.
Very. During building the monster, when he's focused on gaining mass, he'll have a higher carb intake to fuel those intense workouts.
Makes sense. But then when he transitions into sculpting the masterpiece,
He gradually reduces his carb intake to shed body fat and enhance definition. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, you don't want to eliminate carbs entirely, but you also don't want to be storing excess fat.
Exactly. And then, of course, we have fats.
Right. Healthy fats are important for overall health, hormone regulation, and all that.
Absolutely. Ziad gets his healthy fats from sources like avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, fatty fish.
So it's about finding that balance between all three macronutrients, the right amount of protein, carbs, and fats, strategically adjusted to support his goals. But I gotta ask, what about supplements?
Ah, yes. Supplements. That's a whole other
A
conversation.
conversation we need to have.
We do.
All right, well, let's save that for the final part of our deep dive. We'll explore Zayad's take on supplements, what he recommends, what he cautions against, all that good stuff. Stay tuned. All right, it's supplement time. Let's be honest, this can be a bit of a minefield. Lots of hype, lots of conflicting information. What's Zayad's take on all this?
Well, he doesn't hold back, that's for sure.
I figured. He seems like a pretty straight shooter.
He is. He's very passionate about maximizing performance, but he's also very clear about the risks of, supplement abuse.
Especially in bodybuilding, where there's so much pressure to push the limits. So what's his overall philosophy?
Supplements should enhance, not replace.
Enhance what, exactly?
A solid foundation of training, nutrition, recovery, all that good stuff. They're tools, essentially. But you got to use the right tools for the job.
Makes sense. So what are some of the tools Zayad actually recommends?
Well, he mentions a few staples that have worked for him. Protein powders, BCAAs, creatine, omega-3s, and pre-workout formulas.
Okay, those are familiar names, but I'm always up for a refresher. Let's start with protein powders. Those are pretty ubiquitous in the fitness world. What's the deal with them?
They're just concentrated sources of protein. Easy way to bump up your intake.
Especially if you're training as hard as Zayad, you probably need a ton of protein to recover and build muscle.
Exactly. And then there are BCAAs, branched-chain amino acids. Those are essential, meaning we can't make them ourselves. We got to get them from food or supplements.
I've heard they're really important for muscle recovery and maybe even reduce soreness.
Yeah, they might help with that too.
Nice. Okay, next up, creatine. That one's been around forever.
It has. Creatine's great for boosting strength, power output, helps increase muscle mass.
How does that actually work?
It increases something called phosphocreatine in your muscles, which helps replenish ATP, your primary energy source for short bursts of intense activity.
So basically, gives your muscles more energy to push harder.
Yep.
Makes sense. All right, omega-3s. Those are the good fats, right?
Right. Crucial for overall health, reduce inflammation, support heart health, brain function.
And I imagine especially important for bodybuilders who are putting a lot of stress on their joints.
Exactly. Ziad really emphasizes the importance of healthy fats for joint health and overall well-being.
Okay, last but not least, those pre-workout formulas, they seem to be super popular these days.
Pre-workout formulas are designed to give you that extra boost before you hit the gym. Energy, focus, endurance. Usually contain caffeine, beta-alanine, nitric oxide boosters.
Sounds pretty potent, but with so many options out there, it's got to be tough to choose. What's Zayad's advice on navigating this supplement landscape?
He emphasizes balance and caution. Supplements are not a magic bullet.
They can't replace the fundamentals, right?
Exactly. Real food, proper sleep, stress management, those come first.
Always back to the basics.
He also warns against supplement overload. Thinking more is always better.
It's tempting, but yeah, probably not the best approach.
It can be expensive and, honestly, distract you from the real work that needs to be done.
Right, and then there are the risks, too.
Oh, yeah. He talks about the dangers of supplement abuse, especially in bodybuilding. Excessive dieting, over-reliance on supplements, anything that pushes you into dangerous territory.
Good reminder, there are no shortcuts, and putting your health at risk is just never worth it.
Exactly. It was about long-term health and sustainability, not just quick gains.
So to sum it up, what are the key takeaways here? If someone's considering using supplements, what should they keep in mind?
Supplements can be helpful tools, but they got to be used responsibly and strategically.
And prioritize those fundamentals first. Always.
Always.
Well, I think that's about it for our deep dive into the world of Ziad Mekdachi. From escaping civil war to becoming a champion bodybuilder, his story is incredibly inspiring.
It is. Talk about resilience, dedication, and a drive to excel.
It's a reminder that we all have the potential to achieve great things, even when faced with incredible obstacles.
Ziad's story is like a blueprint,
For how to cultivate mental toughness, push beyond limits, never give up on your dreams.
Exactly.
And it's also a reminder that true success is about more than just physical achievements.
It's about mental and emotional well-being, too. It's about living a balanced and fulfilling life.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, thanks for joining me on this fascinating journey.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, until next time, keep striving for your best, stay curious, and remember, you have the power to sculpt your own masterpiece, both inside and out.